Now that we've really dug into our Kenra color portfolio, it's time to talk about our five easy steps to color formulation. Now, Kenra went ahead and made this really easy. Normally, we'd grab the natural swatches and we'd whip them out of the book, but what they did was they created a great swatch book that tells you not only the natural level, it also shows you what percentage of grays there are, and it also goes into underlying pigment. So this would be your natural series 1 through 10 minus 2, and then this is your underlying pigment. So they made it really easy. So let's start off with natural level. When you're deciding a client's natural level, it's important to remember that you want to look in the back of the head. You definitely don't want to go towards the front, and you definitely want to get as close to the root as possible, because a lot of times when you're figuring out someone's natural level, they might have already had artificial color, hair color put on there, so you don't want to use that as your gauge. Definitely not the natural level. Natural level is best to look in the back, usually as close to the nape as possible. And what I like to do is you take the level finding side and you go ahead and separate it out, separate the one that you want, and then I take these and I just kind of slide it into the hair. So that way it looks, I try to marry it in to see if that matches. That's for me has been the best way, is to just kind of fan it out and really just kind of marry it in and slide it into that root area out in the back. Once you figure out your natural level, then what you want to figure out is your desired level. So where are you going? What are you, so if you're a level 5, do you want to be a level 7, or you want to stay on tone? It's more about obviously what the client wants. And then from there, because we've decided our desired level and our natural level, then we can decide what volume of peroxide we're going to use. And like we've talked about before, volume is really just the vehicle, the miles per hour, the fast that you're going to get there, how fast you're going to get there for lighting. But really for color formulation, it's, are we covering gray, right? So then once you figure out your volume, speaking of gray, you've got to figure out what is your percentage of gray. So here we have our 25, 50, and 75, and that gives you a good gauge of what this would look like on someone's head. Figure out your percentage of gray, and then from there, your underlying pigment. So once again, go back to our handy dandy level finder. Here's the underlying pigment at 1, the underlying pigment at 2, and so on and so forth. I'm sorry, 3, and so on and so forth. So now that we've got that established, let's do a couple formulas, right? Another thing I love about our swatch, magnetizes right to the back. Oh, or not. It usually does. There, I did it. It works. See, it really does work like that. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's do a little formulating. Let's see what we've got. I believe we're on page 16 in your book. Actually, it's different. We'll get to the manuals. Okay, so say you're at a natural level. Using our five easy steps to formulation, we went ahead and we used our swatch finder and we figured out that the natural level of our client is a 6, okay? And then our desired level is a 5. And let's say that they're really being specific and they want a 5B. They really love that 5B, they looked at it, it resonates with them, it feels good. So if we're doing a natural level 6 and we're going to a desired level of 5, B, with the tone of 5B, what volume of peroxide will we need? Oh, I'm sorry. And we're also covering gray. So we go 50%. So that changes everything. Because initially we think, oh, well, maybe we could use a 10. But anytime you're lifting and anytime you're covering gray, we have to use a 20 volume, exactly. So you go to 20 volume. And then the underlying pigment here, you're not really gonna have a lot of underlying pigment, but if you want to know what the underlying pigment at level 6 is, you can always go to your level finder here. Probably could have moved it out. And we can look and see that the underlying pigment at a level 6 is actually a nice warm brown. And that's really what we're going for with our 5B. So we don't need to control anything, right? So this is really not a factor, right? So from here, what we can do is we can take a 5N and a 5B, I'm sorry, yeah, 5N, because we need to cover that gray, and that will be about half, that will be half of our formula. And then, how do we get to a 5B? Well, we just covered up 50% of that gray with the end, and now we just need to deposit the B. So we're gonna go ahead and do half the formula is 5B. And then if you want to refresh ends or do anything like that, then you can decide on your color refresh. For this one, I would say there's a 5B in their demi with their 9 volume. So there's your color refresh. All right, so feeling good about that. Let's do one more where we lift and control a little bit of that warmth. All right. So, new client, right? Natural level is a 5, so it's pretty dark. Desired level is a level 8. So we know we're going to be doing some lifting here, right? Percentage of gray, I like to know this. Looks like the percentage of gray is, let's say 25%. So underlying pigment here is, if you're going between a 5 and an 8, you've really got to control some warmth, right? Am I right? And then we're doing a little bit of gray coverage. So we're going to use 20 volume because we're covering gray and we're lifting. So because our underlying pigment is warmer, right? And the desired level is an 8B, right? And she's a 5, so we're going from a 5 to an 8B. We're going to use 20 volume. We're doing a little bit of gray coverage. So we've really got to keep in mind that there's some underlying pigment there. So what do we know about the B's? Well, we know that at the B's, the B stands for brown at the lower levels and then beige at the upper levels. So that means you get some control there with the B and the B. So we're going to go ahead and say that we're going to do 8N, right, for the gray coverage. And then we can go straight to an 8B because we want to go ahead and just embrace that warmth with 20 volume.
All right, you got it.
Does that make sense?
You got it.
Any questions? Okay, great.